Hi, this is Tim Harride, and this is a Zoom tutorial for Yellow Parachute tutors. I've used Zoom for quite a few years, maybe 3 or 4 years, and I just wanted to go through some of the fundamentals of Zoom for anyone who's feeling like they want to familiarize themselves for using it with students. So I've used it with one-on-one students, I've used it with groups, and I've used it with classes. I think it's a really dynamic software. I think it's really secure, which I'll make a note about later, and I think it is really valuable to the work that we do, especially in a time when we have a global pandemic. So I'm going to talk about scheduling a meeting, about starting a meeting, about ending a meeting, about sharing the link to a meeting, about having someone else join a meeting, and about some of the settings that you can use in the meeting, including screen share, chat, etc. So let's get started. The first thing you want to do is join Zoom. So you can download this app on your mobile device. Zoom is available for smartphones, tablets, laptops, and desktops and stuff like that. I tend to use it on an iPad, but I'm recording this video on a laptop, which I also use Zoom on. And I find all the experiences are pretty darn good. My probably favorite is an iPad because I can use my finger to draw on the whiteboard, which I'll show you a little later. But for now, I'm going to assume that you have signed up for your own Zoom account. And when you do, you can go to My Account. And from there, you have a few options. So you can see on the left, there's some settings. You can see, you've got your profile and stuff like that below. And it's the usual kind of profile you'd fill out for any kind of website. So just wanted to draw your attention to up here. There are three basic things you can do in Zoom. You can schedule a meeting, you can join a meeting, and you can host a meeting. So I'm just going to show you real quick. The quickest way to use Zoom once you've signed up is simply click Host a Meeting with video on. From there on a laptop, you will have this little screen that allows you to run the software, allows, at least on my Mac, to run the software. And I had a meeting in progress as I was practicing for this video. So now you see that I am on screen here, hello, and that I have the option to join with computer audio. You'll notice down here in the left corner of the Zoom window that it says Join Audio. I always join with computer audio. I've used a headset, I've used AirPods before. I just find it a lot easier to go ahead and use. Then you can unmute yourself, as that little pop-up told me to do. From here, you can invite, and that's the thing I wanted to show you here. So you can invite. You can do this from a scheduled meeting. You can do this from any kind of meeting. But again, I'm just showing the quickest way to get started with Zoom. So you would click Gmail. You would wait for the pop-up to come, wait for your screen to load, and the little pop-up to come up, and then you type in the person's name. I'll just type in myself, Tim Harride, and then you get the little Zoom link here. So when someone receives this email, this link will be a hyperlink. They can simply click and then they'll go into your meeting. What you'll see here then is a little notice, and you see me there as the only person in this meeting, but the student will pop up and you'll have the option to admit them. All right, let's stop this meeting. By the way, all you do to end a meeting is just click End Meeting. I usually click End Meeting for all. So if you're in a group and you just want to leave, and you're the host and you want to let other people talk, you can just click Leave Meeting. Okay, so that's that. And I did actually update, but there it is. Okay, so let's go back here to Zoom.us. Zoom.us, where you can sign up for Zoom. Go back to My Account and look at the other options. So we just hosted a meeting with video on. You can also do it with video off or do screen share only. I think for our work as tutors, we want to always do with video on just to make that kind of personal connection with a student. You can also join a meeting, and all that does is just bring you to a window here where you can type in the 11-digit code to join a meeting. This is where I'll make a little security note. There's been a lot in the media about Zoom and about security. I think Zoom's actually done a really great job about addressing this, and we'll see that in the settings later. No one is hacking Zoom. All that people are doing is sort of typing in 11-digit codes and seeing if they can get into a meeting. I don't know why anyone would want to do that. I guess it's just sort of a prank or something. But anyway, it's kind of like the old ding dong ditch 'em. Or like, typing in, I guess, a random phone number and calling someone. So it's not too different from there. It's not a big security issue, especially if you have waiting room enabled. And if an 11-digit number has 10 to the 11th possibilities. So it is super unlikely that you'll have any problem whatsoever with that sort of thing in your meeting. But if you do, I'll show you how to handle it. Okay. Let's go to schedule a meeting. This is how probably most people do it. So scheduling a meeting is just like starting any calendar event. I'll call this my YP meeting. My YP meeting. You can have a description if you like. You have a date, you have a duration, you have a time code. Mine should probably be defaulted to Central Time. There it is. You can even set up recurring meetings. You can make people register. I do not require a password. I'll talk about that in a second. I always put the host video and participant video on when I'm doing a tutoring session because I want to see my student, I want my student to see me. I also allow both computer and telephone audio. Sometimes you can dial into a Zoom meeting. I've never done that, but you can. And then I enable waiting room. That's I actually don't enable waiting room. Zoom has it on by default now. It's another one of their new security measures. And also defaulting the password, requiring meeting password is defaulted on, so I just click that off. So that enables the waiting room so that you can allow people in or out of your meeting when you'd like to. So then all you do is save, and you've got a meeting. So then now you have this meeting screen, and if you're to go to your meetings, let's see, there it is. So they have some sort of notice. Yeah, it denotes. So this is another Zoom security feature. The exclamation point here in the round red circle tells me that I don't know the password for this meeting, so they're just trying to encourage me to use it. And there's that 11-digit meeting ID, and I can always just go ahead and start this and share the meeting the way I did before, or I can go to it and I can copy it. Copy this link, and I can just paste it into an email and just say, hey, on Thursday or whenever, go ahead and join my Zoom meeting, right? And you can add it to your calendar, etc., right? And you can have a bunch of meetings lined up. I mean, you can schedule your meetings for the entire week here, and then all you have to do is click, is share them with your student either before or immediately, immediately before or a few days before, whenever you'd like, and you just hit start, and then your meeting starts. Okay, so let's start this meeting and let's talk about some of the other settings in Zoom. Again, I'm going to go here, and again, I'm going to join the audio. By the way, this is maybe the biggest hiccup with Zoom is that when someone is joining your meeting, oftentimes it takes a second for Zoom to connect the audio. When that happens, sometimes students get confused or they don't know what to do. I think Zoom has done a good job of solving this, and I think it works for most devices and computers now. But there are times when the student says, like, can't hear you, I can't hear you. And that's because they have the volume on their computer turned down. So when they can't hear you, how are you supposed to tell them that? One thing you can do is go to the chat, and you can just type, try turning up your volume. And then you just hit return, and it goes to the chat, and it will pop up for the student so that they can see that. So that's the chat room. I don't tend to use that on a one-on-one meeting unless we can't hear each other or something, but that is something you can use with larger groups. You can turn that off. We'll talk about screen sharing in a minute. You can obviously mute yourself. You can stop your video, and if you stop your video, it'll go to your profile image if you have one. And you can record the meeting, which I don't do. You can use breakout rooms with larger groups, which I do for a writing class I teach. But that's beyond the scope of this video. And most importantly, you can manage your participants. So what'll happen when your student wants to join is you'll get a little black pop-up here that says, Kimberly is in the waiting room, and you can just click admit. But also, Kimberly will show up here, and we'll have a little kind of blue button like this, except it won't say mute or rename. It'll say admit, and you just click admit there, and that'll work as well. What'll happen then is it'll say Kimberly left the meeting for some reason. I don't know why it does that. And then a second later, she'll pop up, her video will pop up, and then she'll join audio, and you'll be off to the races. Now, the last thing, probably the thing that makes Zoom so valuable, is the screen share. In general, I'm not sharing my desktop with people. In my writing class, sometimes I'll I'll share a slideshow or whatever, but one-on-one meetings, I'm generally using the whiteboard. If I wanted to share my desktop, I would just hit share. If I wanted to share a video or some sound, I would click share computer sound down here. You can also optimize full screen video clips. I've never used that, but there it is. And you can do there's a whole bunch of options, or the advanced options. You can share all kinds of things, sound only, video only, different devices, blah, blah, blah. I generally just use the whiteboard. Now, the whiteboard is probably a typical kind of drawing tool app, and it has kind of the typical things that you would expect. It has text, and you can type. It has drawing tools, all kinds of stuff you can play around with. And so if you're doing math and you want to kind of work through a problem with your kids, that's probably the most valuable use of the whiteboard, I would say. So if you're doing something you want to work with your kids to help them with any type of math problem, that's useful. I do find the whiteboard a lot more valuable and user-friendly on an iPad when I can use my finger, or I've also got a Logitech crayon, but I tend to just use my finger to kind of draw out math problems. And the whiteboard is a lot better than it used to be. It used to be really there's a lot of artifacting, a lot of pixelation, and it just wasn't. It wouldn't follow your mouse very well, so you'd end up with just images that didn't quite look right. You can also select what you've typed. If you thought it was too big, you can make it smaller. You can move it around the screen, and you can erase stuff. You can undo, redo. You can clear all your drawings, and that reminds me that your student can also draw on the whiteboard if they have some sort of interface that allows them to do that. They can draw with their mouse, they can draw with their finger if they're on an iPad or tablet or phone. That is pretty much it. For the tools here for sharing. So I'm going to stop this share, and I'm going to talk about and stop this meeting, and meeting for all. And I'm going to go back to Zoom, and I want to show you one last thing, and that is the settings that I think are useful for anyone who kind of is going to use this on a regular basis. So I'm just going to go back to my account. I'm going to go to my settings. And there is a bunch of settings. But down here, this is one that people ask about a lot. I think I am going to find it. It's way down here. You have to enable your virtual background, and it is down here. There it is. So your virtual background here can be enabled, and then you can add virtual backgrounds if you want. I actually don't use this, but a lot of people ask about it. So there it is. You got to enable that to use virtual backgrounds, and there's settings on there. Actually, I'm gonna host one more meeting because I realized there's preferences that I wanted to share with you in Zoom itself, and that is the last thing. And here we go. All right, so when you're in a Zoom meeting, before your student gets there, just as you're kind of doing your first meeting, whatever, you can go and you can look at all these different settings. So the audio settings, if you click test speaker, you'll hear well, let's just do it. See, there we go. So now I know my speakers are working. Obviously, I know my mic is working because I see my voice, bopping around there with that green bar. The video settings can be nice as well. You can kind of choose how you want your room. Do you want your room to sort of appear the way, sort of in line with the way you're sort of seeing it, or do you want it mirrored or whatever? Also, touch up appearance. So I'll untouch my appearance, you can see, and then touch up my appearance. This just sort of smooths the whole face. So it's kind of nice. So I always have touch up my appearance on. And there's a few other things that you can do. So there's also general settings. So you can kind of play with these. I don't think there's too many, but I think that touching up option is really nice. So that is pretty much it. That is Zoom in a nutshell. And if you have any questions, you can always ask. And also, if you have any ideas about what I've said here, you want to add anything, please just go ahead and let Kara or Jenny know, and I'd be happy to add those to another presentation in the future. Thanks, guys.